Madras, established in 1982, welcome you to a fireside chat on From Vision to Action, Executing Atmanirbharta in Defense Operations. I humbly request the audience to keep their mobile phones on silent mode to avoid any disturbances. Today, we have with us General Anil Chouhan, who is the current and second Chief of Defense Staff of the Indian Armed Forces since 30th September 2022. In a career spanning over nearly 40 years, General Anil Chouhan held several command staff and instrumental appointments and gained experience in counterinsurgency operations in Jammu and Kashmir and in Northeast India. For his distinguished and illustrious service in the Army, General Chouhan was awarded Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Sena Medal, and Vishishta Seva Medal. General Chouhan's insights will not only enlighten us on the strategic imperatives, but also on the practical steps and challenges in achieving self-reliance in defense. This is an invaluable opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of the nuances involved in national defense strategies and the role of technological innovation and indigenous development in securing a nation. Sir, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for accepting our invitation and would like to welcome you to our campus. Now, I would like to invite the Director of IIT Madras, Professor V. Kamakoti, to felicitate General Chouhan with an Angavastram and bouquet. Thank you, sir. We are pleased to have Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, as the moderator for this fireside chat. Retired as the Director General of Artillery, he has served for 4 decades in the Indian Army, currently teaching in the Aerospace Department of IIT Madras as a Professor of Practice since past 7 years. Now, I would like to invite our moderator, Lieutenant General Shankar, and our guest, General Chouhan, to join us on the stage. Now, I hand over the charge of the session to our moderator, Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students. For me, it's a matter of honor that I am here with Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chouhan, and we're going to have an interaction with him. And the way we're going to do this is like this. First, I'll have a chat with him on a few questions which matter us, and then I'll take on a few questions which the students have posed to me, and I have those with me, with those names. And then we'll have an open house after that, and we'll take on any questions. Kindly be to the point, and when you get the opportunity to talk, so that we don't, go all round. With this, sir, at the outset, I must welcome you once again to IIT Madras. You are the first Chief of Defense Staff to have come to IIT Madras, and the credit for getting him here goes to all my students. It is because of them which is great. My first question is completely out of the syllabus. How do you find IIT Madras, your first impressions?
Great. This is my first visit to any academic institution, actually. I've been to a number of Fauji, armed forces institutions, including places of learning. But this campus is fabulous. I think you're staying in a very nice area. And
Thanks a
my
lot,
first
sir.
impression.
Thank you, sir. This is a fine place, and I can vouch for it because I've been here for 7 years, and it was great. Let's get on to some of the questions which have come up and which we've been discussing about. You know, throughout our history, technology and warfare have gone together, and they've had a very symbiotic relationship. And today, with all the technology which has come up, and what's happening in Ukraine and Gaza, and probably in the South China Sea also, we see the impact of technology still there. How do you see this going forward? This relationship between the military and the technology?
Technology has always influenced warfare. This has happened right from the time, man came onto the civilization evolved in the earth actually. And but what happens is when technology in large numbers comes into the forces, it impacts on their tactics, it impacts on their organization in such a manner that what they call is the revolution in military affairs. That's a term which is coined by West. Otherwise, technology when it comes in, it does affect tactics little bit. But in large number when it does, it's known as a revolution in military affairs. And I'll try and answer this by giving you small examples
Sure,
actually. Since ancient to medieval times, all wars have taken place on a single battlefield, whether from Kurukshetra to Kalinga or from Palasi to Panipat. You take the Western wars also. It's only somewhere around the middle of 19th century, during the American Civil War or the Crimean War, when there was the discovery of railways and telegraph. Now, these two things were not discovered for fighting a war, but then they helped warfare in the sense they revolutionized it. That means now people could move forces from one area to the other quickly, communicate with them, and hence warfare got split in time and space. So it could now, you could fight in 3 or 4 different places at same point of time, and you could communicate with them because of telegraph and all. Now, of course, after that, war could also be fought on land, space, air, now cyber, and many kind of domains. It's expanded. So this expansion of this battle space has really exploded right now in modern times. But what happened that time was new organizations came up. Earlier, there used to be only a CNC or a commander or a sovereign who would command his army with help of some flags and runners. But now, suddenly you had something known as a staff, general staff. You had a GHQ, which used to control. You had theater commanders. You would control kind of battles. So there was an organizational change and shift. So right now, that similar kind of a revolution is on us actually. Maybe it's something like when we say network-centric kind of in warfare, in which, again, the whole paradigm of warfare is changing. That means we are going to have sensors and shooters integrated in such manner that seamlessly we'll be able to employ forces, sense what is there, and this is creating a kind of battlefield transparency, some kind of a real-time situational awareness, and application force is changing. And it is also not only changing our tactics, it's also changing number of organizations. So this has had a symbiotic relationship, and this will continue for a very long time.
Yeah, I get that, sir. And with the kind of revolution which you spoke of and what's happening, a lot of science in it and all that, there's a dichotomy in many people's mind whether war is an art or warfare is a science. And what are your views on that?
Let me answer it this way. I'll give you a practical kind of an answer. When I got commissioned, that's almost about 42 years back. As a young infantry officer, we are operating next to the line of control, next to the Pakistani posts. There, if you are leading a section out on a patrol, you need to understand ground, you need to understand what the enemy is doing, what are the ranges, what are his weapon systems, and every fold of ground would actually, you'll be seeing intervisibility, you understand which unit is there, whether it's a Baluch unit, whether it's a frontier force unit, and you would know their morale, etc. And there actually you thought that anything to do in warfare is actually an art. There was no science in it. Couple of my batchmates probably went to the Air Force. And when they were flying aircraft in a similar kind of a combat, It was all science for them because there was no art over there. So it depends. So both of them are working together. Maybe when you are planning for a particular thing, for operations, then it's more for science because you're taking various objective parameters. You're calculating things and then putting it out on paper. So warfare probably till that point of time is science. But as they say, the moment you enter the field and your first contact and all plans go haywire, and thereafter probably art starts. But as we are getting into modern kind of warfare, which is say unmanned, which is autonomous, so here you will find that science overtaking this art part of warfare. That will go away, but a little bit of art will remain because after all, war is not just technology, it's also a human endeavor because human beings are fighting it. So there will be fear, there will be pain, there will be anxiety, all these things will be there. There will be leadership, there will be morale. So this part would be a little bit of art, but most of it would be science in future.
I think you put it very nicely. If I, summarize what you say, war is going to be taught scientifically, planned scientifically, but it has to be executed artistically, if I may say so. And that, I think, is the crux of what the Chief of Defense Staff has said. Right. Now, let's take all these disruptive technologies which you spoke of, revolution of military affairs, everything has come in. And as we know, many of these disruptive technologies, whether it is AI or cyber or even additive manufacturing, everything, a lot of this comes through startups. And you need a vibrant startup ecosystem for things to move forward. Now, and I think there's a need for the defense forces and the startups to work hand in glove. How do you think that our defense forces can, integrate with these startups, or rather take the startups in and take those technologies to take it for further implementation on ground? So the symbiotic relationship between the defense forces and the startups, your views on it, sir?
See, when we look at defense technologies, and it consists of two parts, research and development, and then, of course, manufacturing. Because outside, whenever people are investing in this, they're doing it for profits, commercial profits, let's face it. So there are always two parts to it. Research and development and defense equipment is slightly complex. Platforms are slightly complex. And the gestation period for developing anything is quite a bit, so maybe 5, 6, 8, 10 years. And then there's always a problem of funding because people want immediate returns actually. That's one problem which I find. This has been overcome by the Ministry of Defense by introducing number of schemes. I'm sure you people would have heard about IDEX kind of a scheme, Innovation and Defense Excellence, through which they are funding startups by having competitions, something like DISC is a competition. So they're having three types of thing. Initially, we started with the money of about 500 crores, and for any startup, there was a problem statement given, a competition organized. Anyone who won it got about 2 crores, and then he would come into some kind of a manufacturing and R&D kind of a project. Later on, we started with DISC Prime, which is about 10 crores worth. And a couple of days back, the Raksha Mantri, he inaugurated another scheme, Aditi, in which 50% of funding will be provided by the ministry, which is tantamounting to almost about 25 crores, at 50% of this. And they have got about 17 odd problem statements. Similarly, apart from DOD, the DRDO has come out with Technology Development Fund, in which they fund almost to the tune of about 50 crores for a particular project. So when you're looking at the startups and how to incubate this ecosystem, means DRDO has also got a center of excellence in IIT. So that's one more initiative which we have done. But truly, actually, it is funding is only one part. The important part is ideas, actually. And that ideas for what we need will come from the defense forces. So you're right to that extent that there is a requirement of greater interaction between the armed forces and academic institutions like the IIT.
I mean, to give you a personal thing, and I think I would like you to take this back with you. When I interact with many of these startups, these boys are all young. I'm an old guy, and I find a gap between what I have and what I can give them. It would be great for your consideration, sir, if you could send some young captains and majors and lieutenant colonels to interact with these young minds, because that wavelength of thinking will have its own effect. And I leave this point with you. It's not an issue. The second thing which I found is that, the students and the armed forces, there's a gap. They don't know the Fauji way of life. They don't have interconnection between what their way of life and our way of life. And many times the technologies which they have in their head, which they have to translate to us and translate to us on ground, is missing. And like other industries give internships to these boys, they go there, boys and girls, go there, spend 5-6 months, get paid or not paid, but learn and contribute to that system. Is there a way that we can do this for the armed forces, giving internships or some method of greater interaction with our students?
Sir, before I answer this, there's a counter question to you actually.
Yeah.
You are the only one who's seen the Fauji life and the academic life. I've only seen Fauji life. So what difference do you find in this, both two lives?
I find a great, this way of life, thinking is different. In the army, we think as a particular way of life. It is quite, structured and top down. And then after that, at every stage, you are given the capability to think. The academic world and the research world is quite a flat organization. Everyone has his equal say, because whether it's the director IIT or the first year student here, idea is an idea. And that doesn't go with structure. So this conversion from army way of life to this way of life has been a great transition for me myself. It's a great learning. But that is where I see, what these boys and girls have in their head and the fantastic ideas which they have, to convert them into reality for us. I think they should go into our units and stay with the units. See how our systems are working out there, how our communication systems are working out there, how our weapon systems are working out there, so that these new technologies, which we today speak of, can get implemented incrementally from the ground level. And that kind of an exposure, just by a forward area tour or so, I feel might not work out well for all of us. I'm talking of all of us. And here, let me be very frank with you. I'm not on the side of IIT. I'm on the side of the uniformed forces. Look, I might be a chap in civils today, but my heart is with him. Okay, he owns my heart. He's my chief of defense staff, right? So I think we need to do that. If your views on this, and maybe we could formalize it as we go along.
So I think it's a kind of a two-way street. There's a more requirement for the army to interact with the academic world, including IITs, and the other way also, which you have suggested. Now, from our side, we've been sending people to, for MTech programs. A large number of them come here, and hopefully, in their interaction, they are able to, convert some people to Fauji way of life, and I'm sure you would have converted some of them also, So, your suggestions as regarding internship, because most of you are in that academic and scientific kind of work and not actually into real soldiering. Not that I'm saying that this is not part of soldiering. You are actually country soldiers in the technological field. And you all people contributing a whole lot, doing a great job, that apart. Physical internship is done by DRDO, actually, large number of them. A lot of students go and do that. Army, armed forces, I think the most technical arm amongst us is the Air Force. And I think they used to offer in their BRDs some kind of internship. But that really didn't kick off, so they've not found any takers from any of the IITs for quite some time. One is, just to make you people feel about that environment, what it exists in field area and what we do. We started some kind of program which you said hasn't made any kind of an headway. So this is one area where we like to take back suggestions from you as to how do you want to interact with us more so that you understand. And of course, we all today talking about Atmanirbharta and mostly related to defense. That's to make the country more stronger in times to come. So it's from that point of view we are talking about.
Well, thanks a lot, sir. I think we'll take this forward as we go along, amongst other things which we discussed earlier with the director. Next, sir, how do you, as a Chief of Defence Staff, how have you planned out your measures to innovate, be ingenious, and get innovative technologies, right, and to enhance our self-reliance and Atmanirbharta, and so that a nation goes towards Atmanirbharta, and we are less dependent on imports and all that, because that's something which is critical for our strategic economy in the longer run, and we reduce our dependence on foreign imports.
So let me begin by talking about this vision to action, executing Atmanirbharta in defense operations. I'm so glad. I don't know whether this was by design, this particular area. Otherwise, Atmanirbharta, most of the people see it from a very narrow perspective of defense manufacturing only. Atmanirbharta, in my view, is slightly bigger as a concept. When you look at self-reliance or Atmanirbharta, the focus is on self actually. And in Atmanirbharta, it's on Atman. Again, it's on your own self, Atman. So it's more about self-realization and self-actualization. And in that, what I'm trying to say is that our ancient value system that we were very good at one point of time, and the same DNA still runs in our blood, that should be a source of motivation and inspiration. And this is not restricted only to defense manufacturing. So it's very right that it is actually defense operations. So it's not only manufacturing and technology, but even the thought process as to how you're going to fight. That itself has to be ingenious, arts, innovative, and imaginative, as would defense manufacturing. So both have to go side by side and together. And probably when you're asking me as to what we are looking at, how are we going about doing it, I think I spoke initially about that revolution in military affairs and I stopped at network-centric warfare. I think modern warfare, beyond network-centric, I see it about 8 to 10 years down the line, is progressing on two fronts actually. One would be something which I call as data-centric. That means where there will be importance of
integration of indigenous technology and manufacturing playing a pivotal role in fortifying India's strategic autonomy and within the broader concept of the global defense, and landscape and how things are happening. And how do you leverage your domestic technologies so that you are less dependent on global geopolitical dynamics and you're less dependent on supply chain, criticalities or all that? How do you do all this? How do you see this panning out?
So this is very complex. You've raised a number of issues in this, going out from strategic autonomy to, supply chain management and all this. See, let me begin by saying that there's an abstract world of imagination and there's a real world actually. We started this Atmanirbharta from, past 8-10 years only, means Make in India, and then Atmanirbharta is a graduation of that. Yeah. We started with Make in India, 2014, and Atmanirbharta is recent, which I said is slightly more than defense manufacturing in a sense. Let's face it that India has a number of armed forces, I'm talking about, a number of legacy platforms. Means our Air Force is still having about 265 or Sukhois or say 200 plus of Mi-17 aircrafts. And it's only small beginnings we have made. Say like we have our own aircraft, Tejas, but it is still dependent on a GE engine, 404. And we're thinking of a 414 engine. We have our own Arjun tank, which still is about 60-70%, dependent on outside technologies. That means we still don't have an engine, still don't have a gearbox. So that's the state we are in. And obviously there is a dependency. So I think to overcome that, you will have to have a multi-pronged kind of a strategy. First is, I think we got to Indianize the products on which we are dependent on, spares, ammunition, and MRO and such kind of facilities. So that dependency of existing platforms and legacy platforms, they are maintained and serviceable. So that is one area in which we are working. And that directly comes under me, because sustenance of equipment and maintenance of forces is part of my job as secretary, DMA also. Means I actually, means I'm wearing 3 kinds of hats. So this is my part. And second part is, I think whenever we have to get an imported platform, now we have that gravitas and strength as a nation, that we should be able to tell foreign OEMs that we'll not buy it unless TOT is given to us. And we're not looking at manufacturing TOT, it is design TOT. So we should be able to do that, and whenever we think it can be co-manufactured over here in India, so that everything comes in over here, and we are not. Can you imagine that some of our platforms for overall etc. have to go abroad?
Abroad, yeah.
So that's not sovereign. We have bought that thing, it should be sovereign to us. It should be here in India when we bought it. But that doesn't happen actually. So it's a very, very complex kind of world. We just started this whole process, and hopefully, we'll take it forward. And why I'm sure that we will take it forward is, there are 3 players in this. Actually, the services who use this equipment, the academy or on the R&D part, DRDO or say IITs and things like that, and one is the manufacturing side. So everyone has its own motivations to have that. This Atmanirbharta and this thing will not work unless the services are into it. If services say that we are able to fight with equipment which may not be the world's best for some time, so that mindset change has to come in. And fortunately, this kind of a change now is visible in the armed forces also, and they're ready to accept this. So let's hope this will galvanize the academia, this will galvanize the manufacturers. So we're all actually working in it together to make whatever we're thinking that, Viksit Bharat and Shashakt Bharat or something.
Oh, yes, I can vouch for it because I've seen over the past 6-7 years a visible change in this institution. From where we were to what we are now doing for the defense is a great change. Having said that, you mentioned one leg of the industry, which is a very important component of being Atmanirbhar. And if you're looking at the industry, there are two parts of the industry, the private sector and the public sector. And of course, along with it goes the DRDO and a certain amount of the research. How do you put all these together to ensure that they work to your plan and not to their respective plans?
No, it's a government's plan.
Yeah, when I say your plan, I mean the government of India.
So, means when we got independence, we had this ordnance factories and defense DPSUs. And we were dependent on most of our requirement from low-end equipment from there, and high-end equipment we used to buy from outside. But over a period of time, we didn't find that kind of an efficient kind of a system. And that's where the government went ahead and corporatized these ordnance factories. And so now they have to compete with the private industry. So that's one part. So now I just want to give you some facts actually. So say in 22-23, if we had spent a capital budget of what about 1,80,000 crores, 80% of that was spent from, we procured from the private, so from the DPSUs and ordnance factories. And 20% of that money was from the private sector. But when we looked at our exports, which is about 16,000 crores, 80% of the exports were by the private sector, and only 20% were from the DPSUs and ordnance factories. So here lies a mismatch actually. When we are exporting, it's the private companies which are actually exporting more than the government. And when the armed forces are buying, it's more from the government factories, whether ordnance factories or DPSU. So obviously there is a kind of a mismatch. So we are more inclined probably to give orders to the government factory still. So this is changing too. And we are trying to create a level playing field in which both are able to seamlessly participate, compete with each other. Both have their strengths. It's not that the DPSUs don't have their strength. Probably their infrastructure, the testing facilities, the land which they have is huge. And we have created this from independence time. So they have great strength in them. Only thing, they have to be slightly more competitive, and I think they will because of the number of reforms which the government has undertaken.
Yeah, I think you made a very great point in the end, and I must highlight it to everyone. Most of us who are here or are operating in the private sector think that the DPSUs and or DRDO and the OFB and not only the DPSUs, even the PSUs don't work up to speed or don't deliver. Be that as it may, what the Chief of Defence Staff has said is very important. We've invested in them over the past 75 years. The challenge before us is to how to make it work. And that is what, what the Chief of Defence Staff is mentioning. You can't let that investment go waste. At the same time, the major point which is made is that you have to give adequate incentive and a playing field, a level playing field for the private sector to come and kick in. I think that was a very good one which you put across, sir, because that misconception we should drive away from our mind that the government sector is weak and it is the private sector only, or the private sector is weak and the government sector is thing. We need to have a balanced approach. That I think is a great thing. Now, what we'll do now is I have 4 students, sir, who have given me the questions beforehand. So I'll call out the name and he or she will ask the question first. Devang Patwardhan. Yeah, where are you, Devang? Yeah, he is a second year student in the aerospace engineering, sir, and he's got a question to ask you. Yeah, put your mic on.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. My question is, in light of the rapidly evolving technological landscape, particularly with the advent of breakthrough innovations in artificial intelligence, robotics, and additive manufacturing, what is the strategic roadmap outlined by the armed forces to leverage these cutting-edge technologies for bolstering India's self-reliance in defense?
Partly, I think I would have answered that question when I said that, how warfare I'm seeing it's evolving. And especially these disruptive or emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, edge computing, supercomputing. All this is going to help us in warfare to take more better decisions and faster decisions. So this is going to help us, and we have a kind of a roadmap for both. So this is that probably it helps us in the cognitive domain to take faster and better decisions. And on the other side is another range of technologies, which I said was something to do with, say, hypersonics. So we went today to see the ramjet engines,
Yes.
etc. We are looking at, loiter ammunition. We are looking at drones, which have a very small cross section. Now today, even Houthis have a thing to hit things at 2,000 kilometers. And they are almost like non-state. So that's the kind of technological diffusion which is taking place, even say hyper. So this is one end in which we will be able to hit at a longer range with precision tomorrow. So this is one, and you won't be able to catch it with radars, etc., because most of it is flying at 5 Mach, 6 Mach, or it's got a very small radar section. So these are two areas in which developments are taking place rather rapidly. Apart from, space, cyber, I think all this, when we're looking at all this, these technologies, these are only, we said, the revolution in military affairs, but a capability which we are trying to build in the armed forces is what we call as capability for multi-domain operations in a network kind of environment. Multi-domain would be, say, let me give a small example. I think on 17th, there was this ship, MV Ruin.
Yeah, Ruin.
Yeah, which was by Somali pirates, and they had hijacked it about 2-3 months back, and they were using this vessel. And when the Indian Navy intercepted that, there was a bit of an exchange of fire, etc. So the strength of their Marcos or commandos wasn't sufficient. So here, for this particular operation, we summoned in, say, our Air Force, with the C-17, took in some boats, etc., and went 2,600 kilometers away, and in the great oceans, they dropped these boats and the Marcos, which were picked up by INS Kolkata, and then, having seen that, MV Ruin stopped, and they surrendered. So a major operation was by the Navy, but it was supported, tomorrow it could be supported by cyber, space, Air Force, and similarly. So you're using the best of each service to have that better decision and faster decisions. So this is where we are moving, some things which I said, and repeats, multi-domain operations, a network kind of environment.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to highlight one issue which you brought up about the MV Ruin and the operations which are going on off the coast of Somalia, where our Indian Navy is operating. I'd like to just highlight the importance of what the Chief of Defence Staff has said. In that area, it's not only the Somalian piracy which is going on, pirates, it's also the Houthis who are blocking the Red Sea route through Bab el Mandeb and everything. And what do you see there? You see the Indian Army, or the Indian Navy and the Indian Armed Forces are the only forces who are operating extensively out there, and they are the only force today acting internationally against piracy, this on ground. The US Navy and the UK Navy are operating largely against the Houthis. And there's one navy which is the biggest in the world, which has got a base in Djibouti. And have you heard of it? Yeah? What is it doing? Chup ke baitha hai. Okay? So, why I have highlighted this is the strength of what our armed forces are doing largely comes from places like this. Today, if that is the strength of our armed force, if all of you get together and all of us get together and contribute there, the way the CDS is trying to put across to us, we'll be at a different level. Right. Having said this, the second question is by Sonia Kute, who's a second year humanities student. Yeah, there is Sonia. Come.
Hello. Okay. Hello, sir. We have gained a lot of insights so far. So my question was that how do the concerted efforts that have been taken so far to elevate the representation of women in leadership roles within the armed forces contributed substantially to the cultivation of a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive organizational culture, which ultimately fortifies the military's effectiveness as well as adaptability in fulfilling its mission objectives.
So let me say like this, that women empowerment is, utmost in the mind of the armed forces. I believe that, we know the status of women in our country. If you want to change that narrative can be changed only by the armed forces. If you give equitable role to women in armed forces, if you give them leadership role, that means they're able to lead over men. They're a commanding officer or a fighter pilot or she's commanding a ship. The moment you do that, the status of women in this society would be equitable. It will not. So the armed forces have a major role actually. The moment we do that, it's a big lesson for the rest of the country. And we are now not only recruiting and commissioning women in various arms and services, but also giving them a kind of a leadership role, their commanding units and all. And that will make a difference. It's not for the armed forces. Imagine that, 50% of a country, if that workforce joins us, then surely we would be far ahead than what we are today.
Just let me highlight what the Chief of Defence Staff has said. It is not only the equitability of the woman coming into the armed force and all that. You must realize the armed forces are a great social equalizer, where we have no bias for race, religion, caste or creed. And this has been our ethos from 1970 for the past 75 years or even before. And with this, what he has explained and what you have asked, I think, sir, we have going in a different thing. And we must be one of the proudest forces in this nation, right? And you head it and we are proud of you, right? The next question from Rishikesh Kant, second year electrical engineer student. Yeah, Rishikesh.
Good evening, sir. We got a lot of insights about how the army works and how everything happens. So, sir, here, while I am studying electrical engineering, what we see that now as the technological advancements are happening, the structure of the wars is also going through a change. So we see that apart from the wars which happens with countries, we also have to now protect the internal infrastructure, which is important for the countries. Like we see that if our opponent countries can hack into our electrical distribution softwares, or apart from that, we have everything is getting connected to internet. So how does army sees it as an challenge, and how are you planning to tackle all these issues?
So, we're talking about, I spoke about network-centric warfare, where everything is kind of a network and operations are dependent upon that. So the security of these networks should be paramount. So the whole country actually is dependent on the internet, financial, banking, railways, everything. So that is one which is connected to the internet. But when the armed forces are working, they're working in an air-gapped environment. That means all our networks are away from the internet. They don't connect to the internet. So whether it is terrestrial or even when we are communicating with mobile platforms. Apart from that, we have our own. So this is one system which we have created. Cyber security and cyber defense should be the responsibility of everyone, and government has created structures for this. This is for the armed forces. For rest of the critical infrastructure, government has a different structure for creating care of our national critical infrastructure. That thing is, I think, with NTRO, and rest of this infrastructure, our cyber infrastructure, is the responsibility of MeitY and DOT. So we have different ways to look at it. We have CERT teams at every level. Every organization has that. And everything to do with cyber security of the country as such is dealt with the National Cyber Security Coordinator, which sits in the NSCS, National Security Council Secretariat. So policies are made there and then accordingly implemented. So it requires a lot of constant effort actually, training yourself, day-to-day people, exercising, all these things keep happening regularly.
The last question for the day will be from Harshvardhan Moite, a second-year aerospace engineering student. Where is he, Harshvardhan? Yeah.
Hello, sir. My question to you is, as a critical nexus between the military establishment and civilian leadership, how does the Chief of Defence Staff effectively navigate the intricate landscape of strategic decision-making to foster alignment of military objectives and overarching national security interests and strategic priorities?
Okay. You use this word as national security and you're talking about military structures and where my role fits in over there. So let me try and explain this, how national security architecture functions, in not only in our country or any country. So it would be something like what I normally say is concentric circles. The outermost circle would be how do you secure a nation, and that is a thing which is slightly long term, and the remit of this is very, very large. So you're looking at say maybe partnerships, alliances, diplomacy, economic strength, technology. So this is bigger. A subset of that is how do you defend your nation. A defense of a nation would mean Atmanirbharta in defense manufacturing. You should be not dependent. We talked about strategic autonomy. How do we get that? I spoke about Indianization of legacy platforms which are of foreign origin. All this comes part of your defense. How do you defend your country? And last, but the innermost circle is military preparedness of a nation. Should there be crisis, how military should respond. So that's the core, but core has to be the strongest. It normally is. So this is a three-layered kind of a structure. My role fits in, firstly, I'm directly responsible for that smaller core part of it. That is one. And also as Secretary DMA to the second part of it. And to the outermost layer, I am maybe as a kind of an advisor. So may the NSA may call him, the Home Minister may call me, the Defense Minister seek my advice. So this, we are having a different kind of a role in all these three kind of structures. I did make a mention to Jan Shankar that not only I am the CDS, but I am also a secretary to Government of India. So like any other secretary. So also I derive some kind of powers over there. And so that also gives me a lot of leeway to function, which I decide as CDS that can get implemented by being a secretary to DMA. So that's how we are able to function. So there's something else you want to understand or know, then I'll be able to tell something more in case you want.
Fine. I think so. We've covered what we wanted to cover, and we were a little short of time. And what I'd like to tell everyone is, today, ladies and gentlemen, and my young students, you heard a thinking general speak to you, right? Believe you me, I've seen a lot of generals, right? He's come here and he's come with well thought out answers. The questions were diverse and he's covered a wide landscape. It is for us, to all of us, to contribute what we can to our own system and enable our armed forces to function better. And that, I think, is the major takeaway, because he's explained to us the whole thing. And we've had deliberation earlier with the director, and we've gone to the research park and we've seen some activities in the IIT, which gives him confidence that IITs can deliver for the nation, right? I'm sure, given an opportunity, all of you would like to deliver to the nation. Is there anyone in this audience who would not like to deliver to the nation? Right? Given a choice, let me ask you this question. Give me a loud yes or no for this. Given a choice, would you like to go abroad and serve Microsoft and Amazon, or serve Indian Armed Forces and India? Which is your answer? India.
You know, I think
Yes, sir.
right now, the global geopolitics is in a big state of influx. You know, everything is under some kind of a change and transformation. India is under transformation and change. Indian armed forces are under transformation and change. Of course, we didn't cover what kind of a transformation and change we are going to undertake. India aspires to be Viksit Bharat by 2047, actually. We all will have a role in it to play. If you want this country to be a developed nation, there has to be a strong armed forces. There have to be a strong R&D sector, strong scientific sector. So each and every one of us will have to contribute toward that national mission of being Viksit Bharat by 2047. And I believe that this is our time has come. So when we say that it's Amrit Kal, it's auspicious time. But actually, if you look around, I think this is a golden moment. And in nations' histories, this opportunity comes only once. If you miss that, like we missed the Industrial Revolution, we missed so many other things. We can't miss it now. This is our time.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. I think your last statement was very important. This is our time and we can't miss it now. Right? And this is the message I think all of us will take away from here. And at the end, I'd like to thank you for having taken the trouble of coming here and spending a couple of hours with us. And when you go back, I do hope you go back with the clear idea that we are all here behind you. Right? Well, I'm here behind you. Okay. But notwithstanding that, on a personal note, I would like IIT Madras and the different forces to come closer together and work for the nation. Because Viksit Bharat will only come about that way. And that's what the message I would like to give. And this is the message which I'm sure our director also would like to give to all of us and all the students here. And at the end, it only leaves me to say thank you once again. And I'd request every one of you to kindly stand up and give a standing ovation to General Chouhan.
As we come to the end of today's fireside chat, I would like to thank our speaker, General Anil Chouhan, and our moderator, Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar, for the engaging and enlightening discussion. I request our moderator to felicitate our guest with a memento. I request our guest to leave a message for the IITM community in the EML yearbook. With this, we come to the end of this fireside chat. We thank each one of you for joining us today. Thank you all. join the dignitaries on stage for a group photo.
Let's balance it out. Whereas in nature it is never so. Fine order.
But these steps are all not quite ordered.
All the best. Do well.
Thank you everyone for joining us for today's chat.
For the first time, I realized that the foreign secretary was actually a think tank head. So that is his hidden personality.
You're talking about Dr. Jaishankar?
Yeah. He's a think tanker. He's a think tanker in disguise. Raisina talk shop नहीं है.
अच्छा,
हाँ.
okay. पहले वो
हाँ, पहले मैं ये इसको reject करता हूँ इस notion को. Raisina is a place where we are celebrating diversity, difference, and
Exactly.
disagreements.
So that's what I wanted to come to.
We are a location only global arena in the world where we place premium on disagreements. Because unless you can voice them, you cannot find ways to go past them. In this world today, we are all trying to censor disagreements. We are trying to cancel disagreements. We are trying to mute disagreements. Raisina is disagreement central. They may or may not like it, but they see the government returning. So there are two kinds of responses, but generally the large spectrum of responses say they are coming back. Some of them may not like. We were never part of the cozy club of the Americans. We always had to take the good and the bad when it came to America. We still do that. It is difficult to walk 5 blocks from New York at 11 p.m. at night without getting beaten up because of your color, right? I've been attacked twice in the last 5 years. If Trump comes, be prepared for tariffs. Be prepared for a punishment to everyone. So there's going to be collective punishment. Everyone and anyone who had a phone call with Biden will be punished. People who understand the world appreciate India. People who still view the world through the political lens view India through that political lens.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Thank you for liking and subscribing and sharing it with people who you think will benefit from listening into these conversations. My guest today is Dr. Sameer Saran, President of the Observer Research Foundation. Sameer